Chapter 1. Tricks and Tools of the Trade. When you break it down, geography has 5 major themes, which includes both absolute and relative location, place, the physical and human characteristics of a place, human-environment interaction, the study of how humans interact and adapt to environment, movement, a look at how people move themselves, goods, and information around the globe, and region, dividing the Earth into manageable regions for study based on formal, functional, and vernacular regions. A relative location is a place's position in relation to other places and is a more subjective way of pinpointing often used in everyday conversations and directions, while absolute location is the exact location of a place on Earth that is usually expressed as latitude and longitude coordinates in a way that's always the same, regardless of the observer's location. Physical characteristics of a place include landforms, bodies of water, climate, soil, vegetation, and animal life. Human characteristics, on the other hand, include culture, economy, government, population, infrastructure, land use, and architecture. Regions are specific areas that share common features and can be either natural or human-made. A formal region has well-defined boundaries and are characterized by specific, measurable traits like climate, language, or economic activity, with examples being countries, states, and climate zones. Functional regions are defined by interactions and connections centered around a central point or node such as transportation networks, market areas, and metropolitan areas. Perceptual regions are based on people's feelings, attitudes, and beliefs about a place and are often shaped by cultural, historical, or personal experiences. For example, the American South and the Middle East. Geographers use different kinds of tools to study the physical features of the world and data regarding it. This includes maps, Global Positioning System or GPS, Geographic Information Systems, GIS, theodolites or angle measures, and remote sensors. GPS provides accurate latitude, longitude, and altitude data that is essential for mapping, navigation, and GIS, as well as enabling real-time tracking of objects and people, which is useful for wildlife tracking, emergency response, and logistics. GPS data is also integrated with GIS, allowing for analysis of spatial patterns and relationships, which aids in understanding geographic phenomena like urban growth and climate change impacts. GIS allows geographers to analyze spatial patterns, relationships, and trends and enables the creation of maps and visualizations that communicate complex spatial information effectively. For example, urban planners can use GIS to optimize land use, emergency responders can use it to allocate resources efficiently, and environmental scientists can use it to monitor climate change. Spatial patterns are arrangements or distributions of various phenomena across geographical space. The 5 types of spatial patterns are population distribution, clustered or dispersed settlements, economic activity, industrial belts, cultural landscape, land use patterns, political geography, state borders, and environmental impacts or pollution patterns. Also, like any other science, geography uses the scientific method to investigate and acquire new knowledge or improve upon previous knowledge to explain observations and solve puzzles about the world around us, relying on hard data to base conclusions because without it, geographers' findings would be less reliable. Before getting into any specific kind of maps, it should first be noted that representing the ellipsoidal surface of the Earth on a flat surface is called a map projection. The 7 types of map projections are the Mercator projection, Robinson projection, Good's Homolocene projection, azimuthal projection, Mulwade projection, Lambert conformal conic projection, and the Peters projection. A Mercator projection is a standard projection for nautical charts, and many online maps use a modified version of it known as the Webb Mercator projection to display geographic information on screens. Robinson projections are used to project a visually pleasing map of the entire world that minimizes distortion in area, shape, distance, and direction, making it suitable for general reference with a good sense of the relative sizes and shapes of continents and oceans. Good's Homolocene projection shows global patterns and distributions such as population density, climate, or economic indicators with a balanced view of the world's continents and oceans that minimizes distortion. An azimuthal projection provides a clear and undistorted view of the polar areas and is useful for planning flight paths as they accurately show the shortest distance between 2 points on the globe. It can help visualize the range and direction of radio signals and has extensive military applications. The Mulwade projection is used to visualize global patterns and distribution such as population density, climate, or economic indicators, providing a balanced view of the continents and oceans with minimized distortion. Lambert conformal conic projections accurately represent the shapes or features, especially within the standard parallels, and is a popular projection for topographic maps, nautical charts, and large-scale maps of countries with minimized distortion in area and distance near the standard parallels. The last projection, the Peters projection, provides a more accurate depiction of the relative size of countries, particularly those in the global south, challenging the Eurocentric view of the world which often exaggerates the size of European and North American countries. It is usually used to highlight global inequalities and promote a more balanced perspective on world affairs. There are also 7 geographical regions of Earth as well: North America, South America, Europe, Africa, Asia, Australia and Oceania, and Antarctica. One of the most common types of maps for study is the World Region Map. This kind of map divides Earth's surface into distinct geographical areas with each characterized by shared physical, cultural, or political attributes. This is to help visualize the spatial relationships between countries, continents, and regions, highlighting differences and similarities in climate, topography, population distribution, and cultural features. Maps also typically make use of scale, which refers to the relationship between a distance on a map and the corresponding distance on Earth's surface. Large-scale maps show smaller areas in greater detail, and small-scale maps show larger areas with less detail. One way that some of these features are discovered is through remote sensing, which is any method of collecting data about an object or location without making physical contact with it. The main purpose of this is to determine information about an object or phenomenon that can't be assessed through physical contact that requires additional research and includes tools like light detection and ranging, LiDAR, sound navigation ranging, sonar, and spectrometers, which let you measure light spectrums. Remote sensing data is typically used to monitor land use changes, natural disasters, and environmental impacts, to examine land cover, vegetation health, water bodies, urban expansion and deforestation, and to track urban sprawl, identifying deforestation hotspots, and assessing the impact of climate change. Oftentimes, these tools are attached to satellites that orbit the Earth. One kind of orbit is sun-synchronous orbit, where the movement and orbit of a satellite always appears the same from the perspective of the sun, meaning it's orbiting Earth around the boundary between the daytime and nighttime side of Earth, so it is always visible to the sun. There are also geostationary orbits, where satellites orbit directly over the equator and completes a single orbital period at the same rate as the Earth's rotations. This amounts to the satellite remaining in the same position in the sky throughout the whole day and is used by spy satellites, communication satellites, and military defense satellites. Geography uses several spatial processes in its study. It studies why things vary from place to place on Earth, known as spatial distributions. Spatial processes aim to answer, why does spatial distribution exist? Spatial distributions are patterns that can be mapped, and spatial processes help understand the reasons behind these patterns. The three types of spatial processes are natural physical systems, such as the water mold that killed potato crops, environmental society relationships, such as the planting of crops, and human systems, such as the human decision to move location. Spatial perspective is the way geographers look at the arrangement of people, places, and phenomena on Earth's surface and analyze how they are connected across space. When geographers use this, they look at the world in terms of the location of things on the Earth's surface to explain why things are arranged the way they are in geographic space and how they interact. Overall, there are two different types of spatial organization. One is with people and places. For example, people are concentrated in a city because of the available resources in that area. The other is environment, like areas with temperate climates and more populated with extremely dry or cold areas. Other examples of both could be a city every certain number of miles along a highway, or an aerial photograph of farmland that is illustrated by large green or yellow grid squares. Chapter 2. Organisms and their environments. A biome is a regional area characterized by the plants, animals, and climate in that area. Many of the plants and animals located in an area are endemic to the biome. This means they are unique to that biome and only found in that specific part of the world. Each biome has different temperatures, climates, and vegetation that define its characteristics. The 5 basic types of biomes are grasslands, desert, forest, aquatic, and tundra. In each biome there is biodiversity, the measurement of variety within living ecosystems. Biodiversity is important because ecosystems with high diversity are more resistant to disturbances and rebound faster. The 3 main types of biodiversity are species, genetic, and ecological diversity. Ecology also has 3 types as well. Population ecology studies the organisms of one species and how they interact with each other in their environment. Community ecology studies all the species in an area and the surrounding environment. And ecosystem ecology looks at all the living organisms or biotic factors and the abiotic factors in an area and how they interact. Ecosystems, habitat, and niche are all related factors of biological geology. Ecosystems are the dynamic interaction between the biotic and abiotic factors in a geographic area. The habitat is a place suitable for a particular organism to live, and the niche of an organism is the unique and specific role it plays in its ecosystem. One way organisms play a role is in the food chain. In ecosystem, this is a representation of the feeding relationships between a specific group of organisms that describes who eats whom in a linear fashion. The 5 levels of the food chain from bottom to top are as follows. Producers that create their own food, primary consumers that feed on producers for energy, secondary consumers that feed on primary consumers, tertiary consumers that feed on secondary, and quaternary that feed on tertiary. Yet another important system for ecosystems is the phosphorus cycle. This is the flow of phosphorus, an essential element for living organisms that is found in DNA, RNA, and cell membranes from inorganic to organic sources. The 3 steps in the cycle are weathering and releasing phosphates from rocks and sediments, plants and animals and absorbing these phosphates, and the decomposition of living organisms returning phosphates back to the environment. Chapter 3. Humanity. Behavioral geography studies how experiences, beliefs, and assumptions influence human decision-making and behavior in different spaces and places, while humanistic geography examines people's relationships with places and spaces. Spatial interaction is important because it explains how places interact through the flow of things, people, information, and ideas. Understanding the decision-making and economic forces behind these flows helps geographers predict, plan for, and manage them effectively. The three core principles of spatial interaction are complementarity, supply and demand, transferability, mobility, and intervening opportunity, alternative point of supply. Another kind of human-related geography is cultural geography, the study of how people and their environment interact. Culture is defined as a complex web of shared beliefs, values, customs, and behaviors, and is a powerful force that shapes the characteristics and perspectives of individuals, communities, and nations. Culture impacts society in four ways. It provides individuals with a sense of identity, belonging, and purpose, dictates appropriate behavior in various social situations. Language shapes how we think, express ourselves, and understand the world, and art and music reflect the values, beliefs, and experiences of a particular group. Culture shapes places and regions as well. Cultural influences shape the physical landscape, including architecture, urban planning, and infrastructure. Cultural landscapes, such as historic sites, sacred places, and traditional settlements, embody the cultural heritage of a region. Cultural factors also influence economic activities such as agriculture, industry, and tourism. For example, Gothic cathedrals in Europe and traditional Japanese pagodas are distinct and iconic, reflecting each's cultural values and aesthetic preferences. One way that culture drives change is through cultural diffusion. Cultural diffusion refers to when certain values, ideas, or even cultures are adopted by different cultures. These other cultures then either blend or merge with the adopted culture depending on circumstances such as level of influence or geographic proximity to the adopted culture. Three types of cultural diffusion are stimulus, expansion, and relocation diffusion. Stimulus diffusion is also known as hierarchical diffusion and is the spread from a person or node of authority to other persons or places. Expansion diffusion is the spread of a feature in a snowballing process, and relocation diffusion is cultural spread through the physical movement of people. Over time, globalization leads to the homogenization of cultural landscapes, often resulting in the spread of popular culture and the loss of local traditions. Cultural landscapes are also affected by physical geography, which influences settlement patterns, architectural styles, and land use, shaping how cultures adapt to their environments. People are forced to migrate by what are called push and pull factors. Pull factors can be better employment opportunities in another country, and push factors might be war, famine, personal life threats, and political instability. In more basic terms, where people live is determined by resources and comfort. People tend to live by floodplains or rivers for agriculture, by natural resources such as wood, stone, and metal ores for trade, and typically warm, pleasant, and temperate climates are attractive to live in, with places prone to natural disasters being less attractive. Additionally, the population density or numbers of individuals in a population within a certain sized area will change as conditions change thanks to density-dependent and density-independent factors. Density-dependent factors are biotic and include disease, predation, and competition for resources. Density-independent factors are abiotic and include weather, climate, pollution, and amount of oxygen. Population density further plays as its own factor in demography, the study of size, density, and distribution of human populations. The three periods of population growth and demography are the pre-agricultural, agricultural, and industrial periods. On a larger scale, there are two theories of global population. According to the Malthusian theory, at some point in the future, the world's population will hit a wall and collapse. Contrarily, the expanding technology theory states that humanity has always managed to innovate when properly incentivized to do so and will continue to persist. Agriculture has always been an important part of humanity's geographic relationships, allowing us to live in permanent locations without having to hunt and gather food. It is one of the primary reasons that civilizations were able to come into existence and flourish, making great impacts on economic growth for many countries. In total, there are two types of agriculture. Subsistence agriculture is farming to feed the family that works the farm, and industrialized agriculture is farming for the purpose of mass production and economic growth. In America, 25% of Americans had been fed by food mostly grown on family farms until mechanization began their decline. Today, large-scale agribusiness and smart farming techniques dominate, using advanced technology to produce and process food. The utilization of biological processes for industrial or commercial purposes is known as biotechnology. The four industry sectors it is used for are healthcare to produce antibiotics from mold, agriculture to hybridize plants, industry to use crops and other products for biofuels, and in the environment for wetlands restoration. Genetically modified foods are those derived from organisms whose genetic material has been altered using genetic engineering techniques to introduce desirable traits such as resistance to pests, improved nutritional content, or enhanced shelf life. They are used in agriculture to increase crop yields, reduce the need for chemical pesticides, and improve food quality and sustainability. Livestock can also be genetically modified to grow faster, grow larger, and have more protein and nutrients. As humans come together, they form settlements with different types and functions. The different types are rural, urban, and suburban, and the functions are protection, pooling, economics, sharing resources, and socio-emotional connection. Rural areas have lots of open space and consist of small towns separated by a large distance of unpopulated countryside. An urban area is a very densely populated area, often with lots of tall buildings and very little green space where many people live close and work together, as well as sharing dwellings and buildings and businesses. The suburbs are very populated with little, if any, open countryside. They are less dense, most people live in single-family homes, there is more green space, and businesses often have their own separate buildings. Urban cities often develop central business districts. They're geographic and commercial centers. Here, there is a concentration of retail and office buildings, few residential buildings, and often skyscrapers with retail stores willing to pay the most in rent, followed by office buildings, followed by residential renters. An inner city itself is a place where the neighborhood is immediately surrounding the central business district. It is also often used to refer to an impoverished neighborhood with high housing density and few green spaces, a decline in industry and jobs, and a lack of services like grocery stores and banks. Often this is where you see differences between a highly developed and a developing country. A high developed country is highly industrialized and has high per capita income levels. A developing country has limited industrialization and has low per capita income. The main economic factors that impact human development are income inequality, economic growth, and infrastructure. Income inequality can limit access to essential services and opportunities. A strong economy can provide jobs, improve living standards, and fund social programs. And adequate infrastructure such as roads, bridges, and utilities is essential for economic development and social progress. Meanwhile, social impacts that impact human development are education, healthcare, gender equality, and social security. Access to quality education empowers individuals and promotes social mobility. Adequate healthcare ensures physical and mental well-being, reducing mortality rates and improving quality of life. Equal opportunities for men and women contribute to social and economic development, and social safety nets such as pensions and unemployment benefits can protect vulnerable populations. Geographers have also created the Human Development Index, which is used to rank countries by level of human development. Its three aspects are life expectancy at birth, expected years of schooling for children and average years of schooling for adults, and standard of living measured by gross national income per capita. Economic development has reshaped the global landscape. As economies develop, people migrate from rural to urban areas in search of jobs and opportunities, which leads to rapid urbanization, the process of rural areas growing in population and infrastructure, often resulting in the growth of megacities and urban sprawl. Megacities, or cities with over 10 million inhabitants, are created primarily by migration, economic opportunities, and improved transportation and infrastructure. They are significant for their economic, cultural, and political influences, but also face unique challenges such as managing resources and providing services to their large populations. They usually face overcrowding, pollution, traffic congestion, and inadequate infrastructure as well, which can impact their quality of life. To support economic growth, countries invest in infrastructure such as roads, railways, ports, and airports, which lead to improved connectivity and accessibility, but also environmental impacts like deforestation and habitat loss. It also results in regional disparities, with wealth and opportunities concentrated in certain areas. In many human populations, what is called a minority typically forms. This is someone who is classified by their distinctive identity, either culturally, ethnically, racially, or by another subordinate characteristic. A minority may also have less access to resources than the majority, or may be viewed as a weaker person because of his or her distinctive characteristics. A racial minority specifically is a group of people who share distinguishable biological traits. An ethnic minority, on the other hand, is a group of people who share a cultural background. More racial and ethnic minorities are subordinated by society, and on a deeper level, race is a division of people based on physical characteristics, and ethnicity is a categorization based on language or common ancestry. However, there is also nationality, which refers to citizenship in a particular nation. Sometimes differences can lead to what is called ethnic cleansing, the forcible removal of a certain ethnic, racial, or religious group, usually with the goal of creating an ethnically homogeneous area. This can be conducted by official government forces, militias, insurgent groups, or civilians, and is considered a crime against humanity. Human settlements often always tend to form political entities as well. These are distinct governmental bodies that engage in political activities and can either be independent or dependent. An independent political entity is sovereign, meaning it is self-ruled and self-regulated. Dependent political entities are controlled to some extent by other political entities. Another term for political entities is also polity, and it is important to note that countries are large-scale political entities with their own governmental bodies conducting political activities. Countries' governments can appear as federal or unitary systems. In a federal country, the power of sovereignty is constitutionally divided and shared between the national, or federal government, and units, or states. In a unitary country, the power and sovereignty belong to the national government, which might transfer some of it to territorial units. Great Britain, France, and Italy are examples of unitary governments, and the US is an example of a federal government. In federal governments especially, it can be important to have constituencies, or bodies of voters in a specified area who elect a representative to that legislative body. States are defined as independent, sovereign political entities that exercise control over a specific territory. 4 characteristics of a contemporary state are territory, a defined geographic boundary that separates it from other states, a permanent population, a sovereign government with the authority to make and enforce laws, and sovereignty, the supreme power or authority to govern independently. States are usually driven to cooperate for global trade, collective security, and cultural exchange through organizations like the WTO, UNESCO, the UN, NATO, USMCA, and BRICS. Sometimes these areas, along with larger entities like countries, are determined by physical and cultural boundaries. Physical boundaries are natural boundaries that divide regions like mountains and ridges between Chile and Argentina. Cultural boundaries are based on cultural differences such as religion, ethnicity, language, or social interactions, such as the language boundary between French and English speakers in Canada. In human geography, the branch that studies the effect of physical features in the atmosphere on humans and vice versa, morphology, is the study of the shape, structure, and layout of human settlements and landscapes. It examines how physical forms such as cities, towns, and villages are organized and how they develop over time in relation to social, economic, and environmental factors. The 5 shapes of states and state morphology are compact, elongated, propagated, fragmented, and perforated states. Sometimes separate entities or governments voluntarily come together or form associations to create policies that provide some mutual benefit to all involved. This is known as supranationalism. These alliances often transcend national boundaries and involve decision-making related to legal and economic policies, politics, conflict, and military issues. Supranationalism is the idea or practice of separate entities or governments voluntarily coming together or forming associations to create policies that provide some mutual benefit to all involved that often transcend national boundaries and involves decision-making related to legal and economic policies, politics, conflict, and military issues. An example of supranationalism is the World Trade Organization, or WTO, an intergovernmental organization that regulates international trade. The organization makes trade rules, negotiates trade agreements, and settles trade disputes between nations. From physics, centripetal and centrifugal forces also play a part in politics as well. Centripetal forces pull people together, creating national unity and holding a country together, while centrifugal forces push people apart, promoting regional identities and discouraging national unity. One data source used by geographers to discover patterns in geography is the Census Bureau. Census Bureau data is used in 3 ways. The first is to analyze population demographics, housing trends, economic indicators, and social characteristics. The second is to collect data on population density, age distribution, income levels, education attainment, employment rates, and housing types. The third is to identify urban growth patterns, demographic shifts, and socioeconomic disparities. Demographic patterns are trends and variations in population characteristics over time and space. Characteristics of these are population size and density, age structure, sex ratio, fertility rate, mortality rate, and migration. The 4 major types of migration are internal, international, forced, and voluntary. Internal migration can be interregional between regions inside of a country, often from rural to urban areas, or intraregional within a region, such as from suburbs to city centers or vice versa. Voluntary migration is often for the pursuit of a better life through economic improvement, educational opportunities, and family reunification. There are also various patterns of migration as well. Step migration is a series of smaller migrations, often from rural to urban areas, with each step bringing the migrant closer to their final destination. Chain migration is of people to a specific location because relatives or members of the same nationality previously migrated there. Rural to urban migration is the movement of people from rural areas to urban centers, often driven by economic opportunities. And counter-urbanization is the movement of people from urban areas to rural areas, often in search of a quieter lifestyle or to escape urban problems. In any case, migration can typically be caused by job opportunities, higher wages, better living standards, family reunification, education, cultural experiences, persecution, conflict, instability, natural disasters, climate change, and/or resource scarcity. To analyze migration, geographers look at local, national, international, and global scales. Migration can have several different effects on people and their societies. Demographic impacts include changes in population size, age structure, and diversity. Economic impacts include remittances, labor shortages, and skill gaps. Social impacts include cultural exchanges, integration challenges, and social tensions. And political impacts include shifts in voting patterns and changes in social policies and international relations. Chapter 4. Worldwide Issues. The impact of human activity on an environment can be described through IPAT: environmental impact, population, affluence, technology. One impact of humans worldwide is climate change. The primary drivers of climate change include greenhouse gas emissions from human activities such as burning fossil fuels, deforestation, and industrial processes. These drivers lead to rising global temperatures resulting in severe weather events, sea level rise, and disruptions to ecosystems and human societies. Climate change may very well lead to ecological succession, of which there are both primary and secondary forms. Primary ecological succession occurs when an area experiences a disturbance so severe that none of the original species survive, such as the recovery of an ecosystem after lava covers the ground or a glacier retreats. Secondary ecological succession is the type that occurs when an area experiences a disturbance that alters the existing ecosystem, but does not destroy all of the original species, such as the recovery of a forest after a fire, with grasses followed by shrubs and a variety of tree species eventually growing after some time. A large part of climate change is caused by the greenhouse effect, where heat is trapped in the Earth's atmosphere, keeping the planet warm enough to sustain life, but enhanced by human activities can lead to global warming and the disrupting of natural systems. The 6 main greenhouse gases are carbon dioxide, methane, water vapor, nitrous oxide, ozone, and fluorinated carbons. One way greenhouse gases are released in bulk is through mining, the extraction of minerals and fuels for everyday use such as the production of household products, jewelry, and energy for cars and buildings. This process can lead to erosion, air and water pollution, land destruction, and harm to the miners themselves. Typically, mining is conducted on the surface and subsurface. Surface mining removes ore deposits that are close to the surface, while subsurface mining removes minerals that are deep underground. One negative effect of global warming is the melting of polar ice caps, which adds to the volume of ocean water, leading to higher sea levels that can cause coastal flooding and erosion. Humans have so far adapted to this through the building of seawalls to protect coastal areas from rising sea levels. Another negative, often human environmental impact is deforestation, which is caused by natural events like parasitic infections of trees, forest fires, and human activities like logging, agriculture, and urbanization. This can lead to a loss of biodiversity, soil impairment, and greenhouse gas emissions. Trees naturally act as carbon sinks that absorb CO2, and less of them means increasing atmospheric carbon levels. Another negative impact is pollution, which is the introduction of harmful substances or contaminants into the environment, which can cause adverse effects on ecosystems, human health, and the natural world. Pollution can affect the air, water, and soil and is often caused by human activities such as industrial production, transportation, agriculture, and waste disposal. It is absolutely integral that we as humans recognize the differences between renewable and non-renewable resources. Renewable resources are energy sources that can be replenished on a continuous basis, and non-renewable resources are those that take millions of years to be replaced. Oil is non-renewable because it is created by the decomposition of organisms deep under Earth's oceans. It takes millions of years to be created from these organisms and is impossible for humans to recreate. Renewable resources, on the other hand, are much more abundant. There are 7 known types: wind energy, solar energy, geothermal energy, biomass energy, hydropower, hydrogen power, and ocean energy. Adopted in 2015, the Paris Agreement is a legally binding international treaty on climate change that aims to strengthen the global response by limiting temperature rise to below 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels and enhancing adaptive capacities.